If you're concerned about heart health, remember that you are not powerless. At the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, we're pushing to outsmart heart and vascular disease by helping to assess your risks and guide you to heart strength, by providing breakthrough research and renowned expertise for treating common conditions and the most serious. Let's stay out in front of heart and vascular disease and embrace every day life has to offer. Learn more at freighter.com/heart.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
You know, most mulch is reclaimed from landfills, but Erickson's mulch is ground from whole trees. Yep, we process the mulch ourselves to keep the prices nice and low, and use only premium colorant so the beautiful look of new mulch lasts. At Erickson's, we never skimp, and that's why first-time shoppers become repeat customers. Erickson's Landscape Supply. High-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection. How do we keep our prices so low? That's easy. We've removed the middlemen. Yep, most landscape suppliers have a couple of them in there, and that's okay. But each one of those men in the middle means a higher cost for your mulch, decorative stone, flagstone, and boulders. Feel free to check around. For the quality of our products, you won't find better prices. Erickson's Landscape Supply. High-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection.
Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
Nembhard gets it to Haliburton, off balance the three. He hits it with a foul. You have got to be kidding me.
Bucks Talk starts now.
A 4-point play to win it for the Pacers, and the Bucks are going to have to sit with that lump in their stomach for the next 48 hours.
Live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios, here's Justin Garcia.
I mean, what do you say to that? It, of course, had to be Tyrese Haliburton. It had to be a 4-point play to end it. I'm sure there's a lot of questions over late game execution, especially the defense on that final play by the Pacers. We unfortunately didn't get a chance to hear from Doc Rivers tonight because of some connection issues with the arena in Indy. Boy, would really love to hear what Doc Rivers had to say. But there's a couple of things to really pick apart with that final play. Just in terms of the 48 minutes that we saw, another game where even though the fast break points were way out of whack and in favor of the Indiana Pacers, I don't think it's always as simple as saying, well, they went fast break. I mean, that was a big area to circle. Sometimes it doesn't mean quite as much. In this one, it did. When you look at the transition, offense and defense, offense for the Pacers, defense for the Bucks, how the Pacers performed. I don't want to get too statistical on this show, but you've heard me reference advanced stats quite a bit. They were plus 14.4 in transition, were the Indiana Pacers. So in other words, they're adding more than 14 points per 100 possessions to their overall tally with the way they're playing in transition. The Bucks were a negative team in transition. So in that regard, the fast break points did tell a large factual piece of this story. Free throws basically even, three-point shooting basically even, field goal efficiency basically even. Pacers were getting out and running on the Bucks. and the Pacers were forcing Bucks turnovers, and not always forcing. Some of them were just self-inflicted wounds by the Bucks, but turnovers and points off of turnovers. A big, big piece of this as well. So we can pick apart all those things. But for 47 minutes and 56 seconds, it didn't appear as though it mattered. In that situation, you think about some of the breaks the Bucks started to get too. Some of the missed open looks the Pacers had down the stretch. Aaron Nesmith missed 2 late threes, right? One from the exact same spot that he knocked down that huge three to beat the Celtics in the conference finals. Or not beat the Celtics, but to push the Celtics in the conference semifinals. You think about the bobble that Brook Lopez had, where if he doesn't bobble that above the break, you get a wide open look for Gary Trent Jr. in the corner. You still got to look for Gary Trent. Everything was a little more compressed and he missed it. Think about the missed free throw from Andrew Nembhard. There are all these things that started to go the Bucks' way where you felt like, man, we really dodged one here. I'll take it. And then those final 4 seconds happened. So there's a lot, as I said, to pick apart and critique for how this game closed in that final 3.9. The timeout, the challenge, all of it, how the Bucks defended it. I am very curious to hear the general consensus. I have my opinions. I'm curious what the rest of you think. I'm pretty sure it's going to be aligned with how I feel about it. 855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. That's the Siding Unlimited talk and text line. Disaster is an understatement for those final 4 seconds. Let's head to the phone lines and start our trek through your thoughts on the close to this one and get a very, very, I'm sure, calculated response here from Dick in Port Washington. Dick, what'd you think of those final 4 seconds?
I'll tell you, it had to be that front runner prick from Oshkosh that makes that bucket. That makes me sick. He's a front runner. I would say overall we played well enough. They needed this game more than we did, and I'm not whistling past the graveyard.
Yes.
They needed it more.
They needed it to avoid losing the tiebreaker. Yeah,
for sure. And they hung on. And one thing I was confused about: did we challenge that last foul on Giannis?
That's what I was unclear on too, because Scott Foster made it seem like yes, the Bucks did.
On TV, what they showed while they were waiting was a Bucks had a foul or a timeout left.
Yeah, and they had none at the end.
After that play, that was gone.
Yeah,
but no explanation. My only criticism is at that point. You don't challenge that.
Yeah.
We could have had the ball at midcourt.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep. I mean, that was my initial take too. You can't challenge that. You have to advance the ball.
No.
And it was frankly a foul. Giannis invaded Tyrese Haliburton's landing space.
It was. And on TV, they were talking about a foot on the line. Foster never even mentioned that.
Yeah.
He was just checking the foul.
Yeah.
I don't think there was an angle you could see it. Brook was in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was in. But if we challenged it, a stupid coaching decision. And my other part on this is why didn't we leak
Dame,
Trent, and anybody else down to shoot a 3-pointer?
Yeah.
Giannis took it all the way. Give it to him in the middle.
Get somebody down the floor that he can pull the pressure and pass it. Yeah.
Right. Right or left and have a clean shot.
Yeah.
Dame, Trent, put AJ in. They can't guard them all.
Yeah.
But instead, we take it to the hole. I don't understand that. So I think there were 2 coaching errors at the end. Overall, I'm somewhat pleased the way we played, and some of it is because I'm going to the game Saturday night, and it's going to be tremendous. I mean, I hate to say that. I guess that's the ego in me not wanting to admit that we lost to these schmucks. But But we got to get, if we can win Saturday, it would be tremendous in a lot of different ways. So that's my take.
What did you, before you go, what did you think about the way they lined up defensively on that play?
Well, the head coach didn't design that play. I don't know if you noticed this. There was some other guy, and they've used this play before. Mm-hmm. I think what I would have done, we took them out beyond the arc.
Yeah,
and I think you want to step back and see where they're going to go, and then disperse. We dispersed too soon, in my opinion. And this pick play that Haliburton got, I don't know. What do you think? What's your take on that defensive setup?
As soon as you saw the way the Pacers were lining up, I think the alarm bells were starting to go off. Like, wait a minute. How familiar are they with what they're doing here? This doesn't feel like this feels like the Pacers are going to get some type of look. Frankly, in that situation, I would have played 5 switchable defenders. Like, I know they had Brook Lopez defending the inbounds pass. They need a 3. Have guys that can switch from one to another if you do have a pick play. And I would have pressed them and made them take that full time to get up a contested shot. I think when you
but then you worry about the pass over the top.
Fine.
You'd have to have Brook back there then.
But who cares
right?
about the pass over the top?
Well, yeah, I suppose then. Well, Siakam can hit a 3.
Yeah. I mean, I'll live with that if that's what happens. But, yeah, it's a shame, too, because we had technical glitches with our broadcast setup in Indiana. And, boy, if there was ever a night you wanted to hear what Doc Rivers had to say, it was tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife and I counted 7 steals and buckets on bad passes.
Yeah. I mean,
lazy butt passes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
At least 7.
I mean, we saw, and it's nothing new. When it works, it's a great pass. When it doesn't, it's what are we doing here? But a lot of those Dame pocket passes where you just try to thread the needle through defenders. And, I mean, I think we counted 3 of those in the first half, and especially against Indiana. I mean, that's where
there were more than 3 in the first half. I mean,
that's all I chose to count.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But especially against the Pacers, it's just gift wrapping them points with the way they get out in transition.
And the only I'll get going here because I'm sure there's other people who want to talk. There's 2 other things here is that, these breakaway points, when you take away the bad passes, those count as breakout points.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the discrepancy there, we still should have won the game.
Yeah.
The more telling take on it is points in the paint. Now, I haven't seen that. Did we lead in that?
They did, but I think it was only 4.
Oh, they did? Or we
the
did?
Bucks did, but I think it was only 4 that they outscored them by.
Okay. Because I think we learned a lot. And I can't wait for Saturday night. I mean, I won't be able to sleep Friday night, I'll tell you that. So, go Bucks.
All right, Dick, thanks for the call. A disappointing loss here for the Bucks, to put it mildly. 115 to 114. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight, but a lot to dig into. The way the Bucks defended that final play, the elephant in the room on the foul, too. And when I say that, I don't think it's what you think I'm saying. We've already seen a couple of texts come in criticizing the foul call. No one other than Scott Foster calls that foul. It was a foul. You have to give Haliburton room to come down, and Giannis did not. I do agree with Dick. Pacers did need this one more to avoid losing the head-to-head series. The Pacers had lost 3 straight games. Now the Bucks have lost 3 straight games. But now it puts a lot of pressure on you on Saturday night. Not only because of what that game means in terms of the head-to-head tiebreaker, but what is immediately in front of you after Saturday. And, oh, by the way, you got to get to Saturday with Luka Doncic and the Lakers coming to town on Thursday. So we'll get into that conversation as well coming up after this. But a very, very disappointing and memorable for all the wrong reasons loss for the Bucks tonight in Indiana to the Pacers. 115-114. More after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
You're going to get a free furnace from Quality. No gimmick. You'll get a free furnace. This is Anthony Zanevsky. All you have to do is purchase a heat pump from Quality, and you'll get a free furnace. And this heat pump is not only going to give you 2 sources of heat and a backup, but also the heat pump will act as an AC system to cool your home as well. It's extremely efficient. I have a heat pump in my own home, and this I know. Your heat pump will cut your energy bills substantially. You'll be getting a top-of-the-line heat pump system and a free furnace. And you'll save thousands plus qualifying government incentives. So now, through March 31st, you'll get a heck of a deal from Quality. This is the only time of the year we can do this. So call Quality, and let's get you taken care of. Get your free furnace and upgrade your home's HVAC system to absolute max efficiency. Buy a heat pump from Quality, and you'll get a free furnace through March 31st.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality. Heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
Many times, patients have symptoms they didn't know were actually related to their airway breathing issues.
I was suffering from sinus issues, jaw issues, and neck pain. I guess I just kind of had my breaking point.
Unfortunately, this is typical. But until you get to the root of your problem, it's going to just persist. Fortunately, Jody took action, and the results were typical as well.
My quality of life is so different. But one of the first things that I noticed was my breathing. I don't ever remember being able to breathe like that.
Being able to breathe freely is life-changing, and the effects can go beyond that.
Sleeping better, having more energy, and it seemed as if all of those symptoms that I had just melted away.
And thank heavens for that, because at Advent, results are what drive us, helping you breathe well so you can live better.
AdventNows.com.
Results may vary. Most insurance accepted.
The pulse of the Milwaukee Bucks, straight from a Bucks legend.
Can't get it off. Marcus Johnson will, though. Can't leave him alone for a 12.
Tap into Here District with Marcus Johnson on Bucks Plus. Marcus and his son Chris offer a weekly beat on Bucks basketball. Get your questions answered and hear from the biggest names in basketball. Find Here District with Marcus Johnson at bucks.com/plus on the Bucks app or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
$115-114. Indiana Pacers knock off the Bucks tonight on a Tyrese Haliburton 4-point play. You heard Dick's thoughts and specifically his thoughts on Tyrese Haliburton. I do think it's fair to say Pacers did need this one more than the Bucks. It's not to say the Bucks don't need this game. Like, we've talked about the schedule that's in front of them. But Pacers were a more desperate team for this one. If they lose this game, they're 2 games back of the Bucks, and they've lost the head-to-head tiebreaker. So that 2-game margin becomes 3. I do think, you know how much I hate to speak in absolutes, but I do think there is now one thing we are absolutely certain of with this loss tonight. Bucks are not catching the Knicks. We had this conversation last week when Jalen Brunson went down with an ankle injury, and I think Jalen Brunson's going to miss more than 2 weeks. They're going to reevaluate him in 2 weeks. But I know there was a lot of optimism and hope that the Bucks can now catch the Knicks. This is their opening. I was doing a different show that day, and we were talking about where the Bucks are in relation to the Knicks, and it said, well, the math is not on your side. It is going to take something like a massive injury, a significant injury to one of the key players of the Knicks, probably Jalen Brunson, for that door to be cracked ajar. And then you got it. But you have proceeded to go 0-3 since then. You're what, 5 games back of the Knicks now? They have the tiebreaker. And that's the one thing I cannot stress enough. We all look at the standings. When you look at the standings, look in the loss column. That's the part that is most important because you can add wins. You can add to your win total. You cannot do anything with losses. Once they're there, they're there. So look at the loss column and use that to gauge how far back a team is. In the loss column, the Bucks are still 1 up on the Pistons, and they've won both games against the Pistons. We mentioned your 2 biggest games of the season were tonight and Saturday night. The 2 games against the Pacers, because those 2 teams are 4-5 in the Eastern Conference, and you have a chance to secure that tiebreaker. So there are more anticipated games, marquee games on the schedule, but those 2 are your most important ones. And the caveat was always, for now, those are your two most important games for now. There's a chance you have 2 more important games, the final 2 games of the regular season. And the hope it wouldn't come to that. Again, you beat the Magic. You win this game tonight. You're feeling pretty good. And now that's wide open. And the way the Detroit Pistons have been playing, they're going to have a ton of confidence. It's a very, very deflating loss. I know it's 1 out of 82, so you don't want to make too much out of that. But for all the obvious reasons, the way you played, good enough to win, even with the flaws. You played well enough to win. I think your defense, as we just pointed out, the fast break points and the big difference it was there, still markedly different than your defense in those games against the Pacers last year. The ball movement, another big item we talked about quite a bit over the weekend. We talked about 3-point shooting for some reason and ball movement. Bucks had a high volume of assists. They had 17 assists at halftime in this game and finished the game with 32 assists. They're moving the ball. But there's a couple of things that stood out about the offense and are frankly the questions this team is going to have to answer as we move closer to the postseason, and that is Damian Lillard's impact. I'm not to the point to say, hey, I'm concerned about Damian Lillard. It wasn't a great game. Now, he was able to make an impact in other ways with those 11 assists, but the move that you made to bring in Kyle Kuzma and send out Chris Middleton and say, we're leaning into youth and athleticism and we're bringing in defense and versatility, it puts importance on Giannis and Dame to be 30-point scorers, right? 25-point scorers. You need to consistently get that from Damian Lillard, but you need a third guy, and it doesn't have to be the same guy every single night that's giving you 15 or 20 points. You just need to have somebody that is out there and hitting big shots. And as of this moment, it's been Brook Lopez as your third guy. I think when you look at clutch shots, and granted, we didn't see it in the fourth quarter tonight. It rimmed out, but you can start to make a case. Gary Trent Jr. is the guy that's hit your biggest shots in those clutch moments. But between Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, and there's, I'm sure, a lot of discourse to get to on Taurean Prince when you look at the box score tonight. Between those guys, A.J. Green, game in and game out, you need one of those guys to consistently be knocking down shots. And in the case of A.J. Green, too, had some pretty good looks. Look, he shot 40% tonight at 2 of 5 on threes, but it's those critical looks at the key moments in the game you need to fall. And that's another thing that has been missing from this team by and large for the last week and a half. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Some more comments to get to in the chat and on that text line. We'll get to that. I mentioned there's one other key piece of that final play that I do want to touch on, and also to awkwardly shift gears now, the news that hit us all shortly before the game in regards to Junior Bridgman. So we'll get to all of that coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
We've saved our clients over $19 million in real estate commission. I say this because that's a pretty big number. But at Century 21 Benefit Realty, it's really not about being a top volume agency. Over here, it's more about you. And at 1.9% commission and no more than $19,000 commission, for the listing side of your sale, no matter what size property you're selling, you will save substantially. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated. First off, our 1.9% commission structure helps get their foot in the door, and that's why agents like working here. But what they really like is having the strongest marketing tools available, with the resources to help them sell homes at the highest prices to satisfy their clients. Century 21 Benefit Realty offers what agents like most, and that's to help them be successful. If you really want to believe in the business model that you're representing, give me a call. I'm Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty. Call me, and let's talk about your future. Each office is independently owned and operated.
The deeper the hole, the more damage you're going to cause, especially if you're driving around with low tire pressure.
We're talking about potholes, and if you're not careful, they'll spring up out of nowhere and bite you right in the keister.
We've fixed broken ball joints, broken control arms, blown struts, damaged wheel alignments.
You name it, we've fixed it. That wheel alignment is an adjustment of your suspension, which is a system that connects your car to its wheels.
And when your alignment's off, you get uneven, premature tire wear, and we have a fix for that too.
If a pothole has bitten you where it hurts, come to Richlands for a professional evaluation by one of our ASE certified technicians.
And at the very least, we'll make sure you have the right amount of air pressure in your tires.
And remember, be safe, buckle up, and hey, always make sure you've got good tread on your tires. I'm Brett Matchke with Richlands, your
Due for service.
Since 1964, we've changed your tires and so much more. Richland's Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richland's.
When I shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, every time I come in, it's like a whole new store. It's because new inventory's arriving daily, all kinds of everything. And let me tell you, thrift store prices make buying easy. And helping others at the same time, that's icing on the cake. St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
The round ball repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
Passes to the corner. Gary Trent, deep corner three, and he splashes it through. The Bucks have vaulted back ahead by 2. A 7-0 scoring run, and Gary Trent Jr. delivers a...
Yeah, I mean, at the flip of a switch, this one went from it. You're feeling really good to grind this out and say, hey, played well enough to win. I don't know that you outplayed the Pacers, but you did enough to win this game, and you locked up the tiebreaker. You've now made that difference 2 games, essentially 3, with that tiebreaker in hand. To the holy crap, how did they lose this game? Like that last 4 seconds. Is this a joke? Was one of the texts that I got from somebody else during the game that was in Indy. 855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. A few of you chiming in on Twitter as well, saying this one broke you. And a brutal loss for the Bucks. So that's currently where we're at here on March 11th, and the team that was 11 games above 500, now a 3-game losing streak. And look, we said this at the time of the Bucks starting to build some momentum here and looking really good coming out of the All-Star break. There's going to be a downturn. There's going to be a losing streak yet. Like, it looks great now. There's going to be another stretch where you're questioning, man, what's wrong with this team? It's the nature of an 82-game schedule, so be prepared for it. But I agree, this one was tough. I mean, this wasn't even a sucker punch. This was, I don't know what the analogy was. This was a steel chair to the back. And it had to be Tyrese Haliburton. So I mentioned there's one thing about that final play. We've talked about, and feel free to share your thoughts as well. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line, or leave them in the chat on YouTube if you're streaming this. Talked about the way the Bucks defended that play. My biggest question, and again, why you really wish we could have heard from Doc Rivers, I would have just had 5 switchable guys on the floor. Like at that point, I don't know that you need to defend the inbounds pass. And a few people suggesting, well, just play the perimeter. Put all 5 guys at the 3-point line, space them out. And I mean, I don't know how, that usually doesn't work. It's just, you're going to have the guy walking into a 3 and getting somewhat of a decent look. I just would have pressed on that inbound. I would have played up on all those guys in the backcourt and said, if you want to catch it back here, fine. We're going to defend you on it. But the one aspect that is indisputable, it was a foul on Giannis. He did not give Tyrese Haliburton room to come down on that shot, on that closeout. And Giannis is still the best defensive player on this team. But we've seen this a handful of times now on similar plays. I think it was against the Wizards a couple years back, or the Suns, where he had a similar closeout. Maybe it was both, against both Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I believe it was the Wizards, where Giannis had a closeout on Bradley Beal, similar play. I think the most memorable one, game 2, I think, against the Miami Heat in the bubble. Similar closeout on Jimmy Butler. Bucks lose the game on those free throws. It's tough because you don't want to rein in his instincts there, but you're not contesting that shot. Like, you go after the challenge there, the most likely result is a foul. As we said, this closes the door, I think, on the 3 seed to be 5 games back and not have the tiebreaker against the Knicks. You got 18 games left. So do the math, right? You go 12-6. Let's say it means the Knicks have to go 6-12 the rest of the way. It's not happening. 12-6 is going to be very challenging with the schedule that's in front of the Bucks too. And I mentioned Saturday's very important. Obviously, Saturday is very important for the Bucks because now the pressure is on you to wrap up that tiebreaker, to hopefully the losing streak will have ended come Thursday, but to secure the tiebreaker and then again, knowing what is directly in front of you. The very next night, the Oklahoma City Thunder come to Milwaukee. For night 2 of a back-to-back for you, it is not for them. And then a day later, you're going to leave for a 5-game West Coast road trip. It starts with the Warriors, who have been playing much better of late. Then you go to Los Angeles, and the Lakers are going to be up against it in terms of their schedule. They got a couple of back-to-backs there because of all the maneuvering they had to do with their schedule, because of those Southern California wildfires. They still got Luka Doncic, and you're still going to have to contend with that. You got the Sacramento Kings on the schedule. You've got the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns. And, oh, by the way, it's a Bucks team that's still below 500 on the road now. Losing record on the road, among the worst of all the playoff teams. Road records that we look at here for the Bucks. This loss drops the Bucks to 14-17 on the road. Between that and the recent track record we've seen in those 5-game road trips, that's why we say, look, it's a tough schedule. You can't count on 12-6, 13-5, 11-7 even, because of the back-to-backs, the quality of opponents that you have on your schedule. I haven't looked to see what it's updated to as of now with this Pacers game off, but I would imagine the Bucks are still no lower than 6th or 7th in terms of most difficult schedule remaining in the league. That's the challenge that's in front of this team. And we said it a couple of times, that Magic game certainly went back to this conversation. The games that you're in, the winnable games, those are the games because of this schedule you have to take advantage of. You have to claw out wins in those games because you don't know what's around the corner. You know it's going to be tough. You don't know how many of those games you're going to have a chance to look back and say, man, we stole that one. And all these games matter. So Bucks are now 8th in terms of most difficult schedule. Good news for the Bucks, by the way. Number 8. It is not the toughest schedule in the Eastern Conference. The Detroit Pistons have the toughest schedule left in the Eastern Conference. So there's that. That's working for you if you're the Bucks. But an absolute gut punch of a loss here tonight for this Bucks team, who, again, 8 games above 500 after getting up to 11 and feeling like you were really building something, and now you're in a dogfight the rest of the way with the Indiana Pacers. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight. Not just the Indiana Pacers, by the way. You're in a dogfight with the Pacers and with the Detroit Pistons. I do want to take a look at some of the individual performances that we've seen of late here for the Bucks team. We'll get into that conversation and skim through some of the questions and feedback you guys have from this Bucks loss. We'll get into that coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Freighter.com to find out how.
We did the math. When you buy bagged mulch from the big guys, you pay $50 a yard. Why pay more for inferior mulch? When you buy from Erickson's, you'll get premium mulch for almost half the cost. And you'll see that even our economy mulch is better, for less than half the cost of bag mulch. And either choice is made with premium colorant that lasts longer. Erickson's Landscape Supply, high-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection. Do you want the economy mulch or the premium? The only real difference is that the premium mulch has thicker strands, while the economy mulch is finer. But the colorant we use for both is of the highest quality, and that's why the color of our mulch lasts longer. And our mulch comes from trees, not pallets, and we process it all in-house. That's why our prices are so low. Erickson's Landscape Supply, high-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection.
Hey, John Mercure here for Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living. Their mission is to transform the culture of care. They specialize in caring for those with early to late-stage Alzheimer's or other related dementia symptoms, memory care issues. It's Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living. I've been in their places. I love how they deal with people. It's about compassion and empathy at Azura. Kindness is at their core. 14 locations from the Mississippi to Lake Michigan, 4 here in the Milwaukee area. Wisconsin-based and family-owned. It's about kindness and care. It's Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living.
Save big money right now at Menards, your lighting headquarters. Find the perfect lighting for your home with new selectable color temperature True Wave LED bulbs from Sylvania. Simply adjust the color temperature to change the lighting in a snap. Receive $10 instant savings on a qualifying purchase of $40 or more on True Wave LED bulbs now through March 16th. Plus, don't forget to check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
This is Bucks Talk.
Bucks lose a heartbreaker to the Indiana Pacers tonight. There was no happiness in Indiana, not for the Bucks at least. 115 to 114. So I don't think we have any, we as in everyone, audio of Doc Rivers post game. This was, so to peel back the curtain a little bit, this was a TNT exclusive game. whenever that's the case, it's pretty difficult to get the audio feeds. Like we have to put in a lot of work to get some assistance to get that feed to us. It typically comes to us from our guys over at FanDuel Sports Network. So took a little bit of finesse to get the pregame feed, and then for whatever reason, it just wasn't there after the game. Someone from the Bucs asked me for the audio for Doc or from Doc talking about Junior Bridgman, who, by the way, we mentioned earlier, which means I think the Bucs weren't recording that, so I don't know that we're going to hear what Doc Rivers had to say after this game tonight, but we can read what he had to say. So Eric has been tweeting out at least some of the Doc comments, and I mean, obviously the $1 million question is the last play.
Absolutely, yeah. Eric Name saying he asked Doc Rivers, I'm sure it was the first question, about the challenge, and the reasoning was because they thought he stepped out of bounds. Not necessarily because it was a foul. I suppose it could have been a bonus on top of it, but the primary reasoning is they thought he stepped out of bounds. His staff believed that he stepped out of bounds, is how Name worded it in the tweet.
Maybe he did, like all the views that we saw, unfortunately, which again, how is this the only view that we have of the play? But that view was obstructed by Brook Lopez. Look, because that was right in front of the Bucs bench that play happened. So if his staff is right there in front of it and says, we saw he stepped out of bounds, I mean, if you're adamant, I guess I can't fault you for saying, no, my guys saw it, and they're pretty adamant this happened. All right, but you advance the ball with 3.9 seconds. You put 5 shooters on the floor. You don't even need a 3.
I was going to say, you could do anything you want. It's not even just a Giannis
Dame rolling to the basket. Yeah, and with 3 seconds in the half court, you got a chance to do something. So that's a tough part. I tried to, and maybe the timelines are off here, but in watching this team recently, there's been a couple of things that stood out, or at least seem like they stand out. It feels like A.J. Green is kind of in a shooting funk here. But as you dig into the numbers, it's just not the case. So it just kind of seems like the shots that you remember are the shots that he's been missing. So if we look at A.J. Green since the All-Star break, he was shooting 39% on threes, making just over 2 and taking 5.5 per game. I should say. That's since the All-Star break. Going into the All-Star break, A.J. Green was shooting 42% on threes, making just over 2, taking 5. So his makes identical on a per-game basis, his shooting percentage up a couple of basis points. But it's not quite as severe as it would have seemed like in watching these games. The other big piece is Brook Lopez. So it seems like, Brook Lopez is not taking threes, which I know would please a lot of this audience, right? Of the spacing concerns and everything else. But again, that is another statistic that just doesn't match the eye test. He's taken about a half a 3 fewer per game since the All-Star break. And he has been more efficient. Or actually, no, he has not been more efficient. Shooting 35% since the All-Star break, was shooting 37% before the All-Star break. But you are using him around the basket more. And, I said you need to find, it doesn't have to be consistent in terms of a big 3, but you need a consistent third scorer. That consistent word, it doesn't even have to be the same guy. It just means consistently there's another guy that is scoring for you. Whether it's Kyle Kuzma, A.J. Green, tonight it was Taurean Prince, I'm sure there's a lot of feedback on that. We've already seen a few comments there. Gary Trent Jr., right? But it has to be someone. Maybe that's Brook Lopez. Like it's kind of been Brook Lopez of late and since the trade deadline or All-Star break at least. But the way that they're using him, we've started to see the Bucks again explore those opportunities in the paint. And you look at when the double comes over, they're stashing Brook in the in the dunker spot a lot more and putting him around the rim. So if you're going to help onto Giannis, well, either we got a shooter that's one pass away that you helped off of, or Brook Lopez is under the rim. So that's helped the offense. But I think they're still searching. And, you know, I go back to what Giannis said after the Cavs game. The whole vibe. Did you see his comments after the Cavs game?
I don't think so.
So the whole vibe was, we've seen Giannis with an elevated sense of urgency and not like pressing the panic button or sounding the alarm, but basically Giannis, hey, we got to fix this and we got to figure, like, go back to earlier this season, right? That was not Giannis in the locker room after the Cavs. And he was asked about that matchup with Cleveland. Hey, as of right now, and who knows now, but as of right now, this would be your second round opponent. Ultimate caveat there, a team that's lost in the first round 2 years in a row, you got to get out of the first round. But the sense was, look, I think we overthought things. We tried to move the ball around a little too much, asked about the size of the Cavs, like what did that do? He shot it down. Doc Rivers, too. Didn't shoot it down, but was like, well, Cleveland doesn't really play big. They do at the start of the game, and then they stagger those guys. And Giannis's whole approach was, if I can put words in his mouth and read between the lines, I know they're a good team. We're not concerned. We feel like we had opportunities we didn't execute and capitalize on. We played them close 2 times earlier in the year. If that's who we draw, that's who we draw, so be it. But we're not worried about the Cleveland Cavaliers.
May I speak for the fans here real quick?
Well.
Just looking at the numbers, you hear that, but I think a lot of Bucks fans are then seeing the games and
seeing 0-9 against the Cavs,
that's exactly what
the
I was
Celtics, and the Knicks,
and just thinking, in theory, like since the trade deadline, team looks way better. All of those things, a lot of positive aspects to that, and on paper, this team makes sense as a championship team. So the frustration is, why aren't we seeing that at least more consistently, especially against the top tier teams?
Well, and that was like what he kind of wrapped it with was he didn't use this exact phrase, but basically we're still a work in progress. We got new pieces that we're working into the mix. We're still learning with those guys and figuring out what the best way to play with and off of them is. So, like, it was really like one big shoulder shrug of, I'm not worried about it. It's going to get there. I will say this, too. When you look at, you mentioned the team makes sense now. You look at, there was one stretch tonight in, I think, the third quarter where back-to-back plays, Kyle Kuzma just got the inbound immediately down the floor, attacking Obi Toppin and saying, like, this guy's not a good defender. Let's make him defend. The personnel of having Kyle Kuzma, the Bucks didn't have that last year. You couldn't really take advantage of that. So you started to see that, but then the Pacers would counter with, well, let's just do the same thing and run on the Bucks. But you still see where Kyle Kuzma is bringing you that different dimension of his cutting ability. Doc talked about this quite a bit before the game, too, about what that does to trigger the offense and open things up for everybody that's on the floor. And it's, again, something they hadn't had before. Chris Middleton's not an off-ball cutter to the basket. But I think most Lakers fans would tell you, Wizards fans would tell you too, but, like, I mean, what big games was Kyle Kuzma in? I think a lot of Lakers fans would say, hey, it's different in the playoffs. And we get that. I think you have enough proven guys that you feel like, I know what Giannis is as a playoff player. I know what Brook Lopez is in the playoffs. I know what Damian Lillard is. AJ Green got his first taste of the playoffs last year. Gary Trent Jr. has had a taste of the playoffs and has had some big moments. Kyle Kuzma, again, I made the comparison earlier in the year about, is this kind of like when the Mavs traded for P.J. Washington last year? Because the same story, he had never played in the playoffs, and he was kind of lumped in as he's a losing player and he plays on a losing team. You don't know what you're going to get with him. And it's not like the Mavs went to the finals just because of P.J. Washington, but he was a big piece of it. And it unlocked things that team didn't have, and their defense really started to climb. I think you're seeing some of that from Kyle Kuzma, but that's going to be the ultimate question when we get to the playoffs is the shooting. He was a very good 3-and-D player in that championship run with the Lakers in the bubble. Tonight, Kyle Kuzma was your only starter that did not reach double figures. 9 points tonight for Kyle Kuzma. And the three-point shooting, 0 of 3 tonight. I believe it's gotten better since he's arrived in Milwaukee, but that's going to be a guy that people help off of until he starts to hit shots in the playoffs. So the cutting and playing around the rim, I do think that's a big reason why we've seen more of that with Doc Rivers and how he uses Brook Lopez of we can't just keep passing around the perimeter if guys are going to help off of Kuz and leave him open. They're going to help off. Let's start to make them pay and pack the paint, whether it be Giannis and forcing those doubles and dumping it down to Brook Lopez or whatever it is. But this is how we're going to change our offense. It's as simple as you need Damian Lillard to be the second best player on this team, clearly. And I said before, I think we all said this, any series the Bucks play in this year, in the Eastern Conference, they are going to have the best player in that series on the floor. And you thought the hope is, in some of them, they may even have the second best player. That's what you need from Damian Lillard. If you're getting that, I do think the other pieces will fall into place. It's still going to be important for guys like A.J. Green and Gary Trent Jr. to hit shots, but it ultimately falls on those two guys. They have to be the two best players on this team and two of the three best players on the floor. You got a big opportunity to show that against the Los Angeles Lakers on Thursday night. Star power maybe not quite there with no LeBron James. Luka Doncic is going to be there. And it's a Lakers team that's been playing pretty well defensively of late. So that's going to be a very good challenge for this team to try to snap this 3-game losing streak. Same story for a day and a half later, 2 days later, when the Indiana Pacers come to town for their final game against you this regular season. And then you get the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then you go on that West Coast road trip. The hope is you have a winning month in this month of March, right? A very tough schedule that the Bucks have here. Just continue to pick up wins, keep pace with the Indiana Pacers. And thus, I don't know, when we get further into the season, maybe we'll have that conversation of, well, is it actually not a bad thing if you finish 6th and you're getting the New York Knicks and then you get the Celtics in the second round if you win that series, opposed to this Pacers team that's been playing very, very good basketball of late up until this 3-game skid without Haliburton. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers waiting for you in the second round. Who knows? It's too early to have that conversation. But that 5-game West Coast road trip is going to tell you a lot about this team because of their overall road record, because of some of the numbers we've seen on 5-game trips and the road trips in general so far for the last 2 years now. I mean, remember when Doc Rivers took over? That was at the start of a 5-game trip. They go 1-4. That trip is probably going to tell you what you need to know about this team, because it's going to come into the last week of March, and then you're getting set for who knows what to expect in April. One day it looks like, all right, maybe not so bad. The next day, I don't know, is Phoenix going to be fighting for their playoff lives and trying to secure a 10 seed? Have the Pistons moved past you? Zion Williamson's racking up triple-doubles. You got 2 games with the Pelicans, so we don't really know where that April schedule is as of this moment. there was some other news today. Speaking of disappointing days, there was some other news today off the court for the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll talk a little bit about what the Bucks lost today. Not the game, but the person in Junior Bridgman and his legacy and his career here in Milwaukee and off the court. Everything that he stood for and that he accomplished throughout his life and the work that he put in with individuals in the NBA and teams. We'll get into that conversation and start to wrap things up after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
You're going to get a free furnace from Quality. No gimmick. You'll get a free furnace. This is Anthony Zanevsky. All you have to do is purchase a heat pump from Quality, and you'll get a free furnace. And this heat pump is not only going to give you 2 sources of heat and a backup, but also the heat pump will act as an AC system to cool your home as well. It's extremely efficient. I have a heat pump in my own home, and this I know. Your heat pump will cut your energy bills substantially. You'll be getting a top-of-the-line heat pump system and a free furnace. And you'll save thousands plus qualifying government incentives. So now, through March 31st, you'll get a heck of a deal from Quality. This is the only time of the year we can do this. So call Quality, and let's get you taken care of. Get your free furnace and upgrade your home's HVAC system to absolute max efficiency. Buy a heat pump from Quality, and you'll get a free furnace through March 31st.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality. Heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
Jackson Hewitt wants you to save money on tax prep. We're saving money by having our intern rap in this commercial.
Don't stress, Jackson Hewitt's got expert tax prep, $149 or less. Yo, some tax guys lie about price. They got hidden fees, that ain't nice.
Ain't nice.
Don't ignore MC Kevin's rhyme, cause this deal's for a limited time. $149.
For tax prep that's $149 or less, hurry into Jackson Hewitt today.
No cap.
Limited time offer for new clients on federal returns. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com/149.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
The latest gift with purchase has arrived at your local Merle Norman Cosmetics, including Foundation Primer Plus, Soft Touch Eyeshadow Duo, Lasting Cheek Color, and Plush Lip Liner and Pinky Swear. You'll take it everywhere you go. Shop in studio now and take a look at our Spring Berry Cherry Color Collection at Merle Norman Cosmetics Salon and Spa at Brookfield Square. Free with the purchase of 2 or more Merle Norman Cosmetic products. Cosmetic accessories not included. Offer valid while supplies last at participating Merle Norman Cosmetic Studios only. Limit 1 per customer. We reserve the right to modify the gift if needed. Promotion not available at merlenorman.com.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
115 to 114 final. The Indiana Pacers on a Tyrese Haliburton 4-point play send the Bucks to their 3rd consecutive defeat and snap a 3-game losing streak of their own. So now setting things up for a big showdown Saturday night in Milwaukee between these same 2 teams, the final regular season matchup. But as of right now, this would be your first-round playoff series with the Bucks currently the 4 seed and the Pacers the 5 seed. Let's see what questions you got for me, Matt.
Active YouTube comment, of course, after an interesting and disappointing game tonight. In terms of that final play, I want to get your thoughts here. You mentioned the defense that you would have put out there with the 5 switchable defenders compared to what we saw. Reaper's Ghost in our YouTube chat suggested they would have put all 5 defenders on the perimeter because they needed a 3. The Bucks were up by 3. So the idea there is to completely lock up the perimeter and let them do whatever they want inside the perimeter. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I thinking through that, if you space guys out on the perimeter, you just inbound the ball at midcourt and let a guy, or just in front of it, and let a guy step into a deep 3. So I would just much rather press and defend that play.
Sure. It certainly wasn't an easy shot from Haliburton, but an impressive shot nonetheless. Another
did
one.
You, as soon as he released it, did you know it was going in?
Yeah, 100%. Doesn't mean it wasn't a tough shot, but we all knew it was going in. Another comment, Alana Yang said, horrible closeout by Giannis. He wasn't in position to block the shot. Why even get close enough to be called for a foul? Also, bad challenge by Doc. We've covered that. And on the foul, I'll add this to it. You've mentioned it was a foul.
Yeah.
Is it a foul by the book, or do you think, if you wrote the rule book, would you say that's a foul?
Yeah.
You would?
He didn't give him space to come down.
Okay.
And we heard, or we saw the tweet from Eric Name, too, that the Bucks bench, whatever the wording was, but they felt pretty strongly that Tyrese Haliburton stepped out of bounds. And I know on the TV broadcast they kept trying to show that footage, but just like watching NFL games in the 90s where you don't have the pylon cam and you only have one view, that's what we had of, well, you got this view where it's really grainy, or you got this view that we think would show us whether or not his foot was down on that line, but Brook Lopez is blocking it.
Another one here, I think just kind of addressing some fans' dismay over this one. Trina says, looking like the same old Bucks teams from the past that beat ourselves over and over again. We make too many dumb mistakes.
Well, I mean,
decent amount of turnovers tonight.
Yeah, and the last couple games. To that point of beating yourselves in the same old, I mean, I remember we talked about this last year. When you looked at the Bucks' record and performance against the top teams in the league, it was pretty good. It wasn't the best in the league, but it was certainly better than this year. And I remember having this same conversation last year that it was, look, if you believe in this team, there are numbers to support that and show you. Before we knew about the injury to Giannis, like there's numbers to support. They have the best 5-man unit in the league by the numbers. They have a pretty good net rating against the top 10 teams in the league. Like, you can find enough to support that argument. You can also find areas to say, no, you shouldn't believe in this team. And I think the unfortunate part right now is you're really going off of eye test as your supporting case this year. That's the difference. If you stick to the numbers, which I typically tend to do, it's tough to find numbers that say this is a team that's a championship contender. Now, you still got a month of season to do that, and you still got quite a few big challenges. But, I mean, fourth quarter offense, clutch offense, your overall record in clutch games, the 0-9 record against the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Knicks, those are pretty big hurdles to overcome. And speaking of that fourth quarter offense number, a bad job by me. We didn't even talk about this or didn't spend much time on this, but how many shots do you think Giannis and Damian Lillard took in the fourth quarter? So the Bucks as a whole took 20 shots in that quarter.
I'll say 6.
3.
Wow.
They were 0 for 3.
Brook Lopez show.
Brook Lopez scored 11 points.
To his credit.
5 of 5 in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
If they won this game, this was going to be the Brook Lopez game for me.
But you look at that of how are you not spamming Giannis and Dame, two-man game and pick and rolls? The fact, look, he scored 18 points and he hit 4 threes. But Taurean Prince took 2 more shots in this game than Giannis did. And it wasn't even that number can be deceiving because Giannis took 11 free throws. Giannis took 3 free throws in this game. So fine, tack on two more shots, basically. They took an even amount of shots. Like, that was one of the big standouts early in the game, too, of feels like a lot of Taurean Prince here. And, yeah, I mean, that's, again, one of the big things. I haven't looked of where it sits now. I would imagine there was no improvement in the fourth quarter offensive numbers for this group, but it all kind of ties to what we said before of it's tough to find numbers to support this. Like you're going on hope. And
right.
Hope's not a great strategy to have. It's not a strategy at all, but we got the best player in the Eastern Conference. We got Damian Lillard. We revamped our roster. There's more athleticism. I like the way they're defending. Jericho Sims continues to have some nice moments for you. Kevin Porter Jr., I continue to be pleasantly surprised with in giving them aspects they haven't had before. A rough game for KPJ, taking, 4 shots to the face in this game? But that's what you're basically going off of is I hope this works because we reshaped the roster and we have arguably the best player in the league. Fourth quarter numbers for the Bucks after this game. They were 30th coming into this game tonight. I wouldn't imagine we've seen any movement there. It was 27-26 fourth quarter tonight. So they are now 29th. They have moved past the Brooklyn Nets. They have a 106.1 offensive rating in the fourth quarter of games, which is 29th. A 108 defensive rating, which is 5th. And a net rating of negative 1.9, which is 19th. So second worst offense, 5th best defense, and basically a bottom 10 team overall in the fourth quarter. And by the way, Bucks are 5th. The Pistons are 4th in fourth quarter defense. The Pistons were also very bad in the fourth quarter. They're 27th in offense, but their defense is better than the Bucks has been, and they're in the middle of the pack in fourth quarters. And again, that's a Pistons team you don't have to worry about now. Won again tonight. Malik Beasley, another big game.
Can I add one more question to the press conference here?
Sure.
So, obviously, we're talking about seeding with the Bucks, Pacers, and Pistons, but if the Bucks meet the Pacers in that 4-5 playoff series, as we stand right now, obviously we think Bobby Portis would be back for that, which would help the Bucks case a little bit. But how do you see that series going? A rematch of last year, but two different teams.
Famous last words. I strongly feel that the Bucks would beat the Pacers, if healthy, in a best-of-7 series.
And how much does home court advantage play in that? Because that's the difference between 4 and 5, right? It's different, at least right now.
The numbers have shown it doesn't really matter as much as we make it seem like it matters. I mean, the injuries, yes. Like Dame missed, 2 games in that series. Giannis missed the entire series. The Pacers were the lower seed last year. The Pacers were the lower seed against the New York Knicks. And I know the Knicks started to break down towards the end of that series. But before the end and before that started to break down, the Pacers, being the lower seed, not having home court didn't matter. So the Miami Heat were the lower seed. And again, Giannis wasn't 100%, but they were the lower seed in every series they were in. We've seen less and less importance on that in the past few years. So I still think I know I would have a pretty great deal of confidence against both the Pacers and the Pistons in a first-round series for the Bucks. We can't rule out the Knicks either. I know there were some questions about, we should talk about catching the Knicks. I'm ready to close the door on that. To have to make up 6 games with 18 left, I think we have our answer there. I am very curious to see that final game against the Knicks because of the way the Bucks have reshaped their roster and how we've started to see teams defend the New York Knicks. Again, you don't know the Jalen Brunson piece to that, given the timeline they provided. And they didn't say he was going to be back in 2 weeks. They said they'd reevaluate or provide an update in 2 weeks. That would still put us to a week before that game is played. So probably going to be pretty touchy there. You got to win that game, though. I don't know, and we said this earlier in the year when it was 0-4 and then 0-6. I don't know what this means, but I know you can't let this keep going. I don't know that it means you can't beat these teams in a best-of-7 series, although the numbers would tell you, yes, it does. But 0-10 against the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Knicks, yeah, whatever it tells you, it's not good.
And it's funny because the story a couple weeks ago was the Knicks were 0 and whatever against both Boston, Cleveland, and they threw in
City,
OKC.
Yeah. And I think the Nuggets, too. But,
Right.
yeah, I mean, same conversation for them. I think we talked about it after the Cavs game, and somebody was asking me about it earlier before this game, who will remain unnamed. That who would you rather play, the Celtics or the Cavs in the second round? And your initial reaction is, buddy, we got to get out of the first round first. But honestly, I don't know.
Because the Cavs have earned your respect.
I believe in the Cavs that much.
I mean, they've lost 10 basketball games.
They've lost 10 games, and yet they have a 3-game losing streak this season. They just won their 15th straight tonight. The second time they've won 15 games in a row this season. It's like whenever a team wins a championship, except for 2021-22, whenever a team wins a championship, it's like you get to the point that you automatically write them off like, well, I don't think they're winning again. Like we always do this thing of, is this the next dynasty if you're young enough? But then you slowly realize, like, no, the only quote-unquote dynasties we've seen were that Warriors super team that had 2 of the greatest players of all time and 3 of the best shooters of all time on that team. Other than that, we have seen you just don't repeat in this league for a bevy of reasons, and especially now when you look at all the cap implications, the second apron talk that, all of us are well-versed in that now, and just the talent distribution throughout the league. Like, it's tough to repeat. So I think there's a part of that. I think there was a sense with the Celtics, too, of, man, they got everything out of that group last year. Like, all the questions over how do they execute in games. The offense was elite. The defense was next level. I think it's pretty clear they're, playing in middle gears here, like preserving themselves for the playoffs. They bring it out for the big games, like we saw Al Horford take down LeBron in that game over the weekend. They still have a ton of shooting. Sam Hauser just had a huge game. I think he had 9 threes in the quarter the other night. Peyton Pritchard just had a 40-point game. So they still have that. But who Pat Riley and a few others said this along the way too. It's tough to quantify, but once you get that championship, your thirst for you want to win another one, but it's not the same as when you haven't experienced it and you're pushing for that you know what it takes. Like, we can take it easy here. We can coast through this stretch of schedule. Let's just make sure we're healthy for the playoffs and let's save it for this. And that's always such a danger to. Not saying the Celtics are flipping the switch per se. They still have the second best record in the conference, but that whole notion is what's dangerous. So, those are the concerns over the Celtics for me. I'd still much rather be in their spot than where the Bucks are currently sitting. But that Cavs team, it would be hypocritical to write them off if you really strongly believed in the Bucks. And, in 2020, 2021, if you were that guy, many of us, year after year, those first 3 years of the Bud era, you came up short the first 2. Like, I believe in this group, Giannis and Drew Holiday at the time of that trade, but the entire group, Giannis and Chris and Brooke and Bud's offensive system, I believe in this group. They're going to get over the hump. It would be very hypocritical to be that person and say, I need to see the Cavs do it. Like, we said the same things about the Bucks in 2021, and kind of similar to the Bucks. It's a Cavs team that bulk of it has been together for a couple of years here. You can point to, hey, this is the same team that went to 7 games against the Magic in the first round last year. Fine. But look at what the Bucks did the year before they won the championship. Like, they went to 5 games in the first round of the Magic, played 5 games, and were embarrassed out of the bubble against the Miami Heat in the second round. Like, sometimes you have to experience those failures. The Celtics too, right? They, year after year, of coming up short in the conference finals and then reaching the finals in 2022 and losing to the Warriors. Celtics went through that too. That I think that's a part of the checkpoint. The Warriors were the team that really kind of skipped the line in that regard. But those are things you have to go through. Donovan Mitchell's a proven playoff guy. Like, your questions are, how does Darius Garland look in the playoffs? He's been one of the best clutch players in the league. How do their bigs play together in the playoffs? Do they have to play both of them on the floor at the same time more in the postseason? But, I mean, this team, it's hard to find any holes in this Cavaliers team. The overall point of all of it is it's not 2018. It's not 2019 anymore, where you would say your top 2 seed, you're getting the Detroit Pistons, you're getting the Orlando Magic, and like at very worst, it's going to be a gentleman's sweep. It's tough. There is no easy path, and look, the likelihood is you're going to have to beat both the Cavs and the Celtics to get to the NBA Finals. But you're going to have to win in the first round to even start to get there.
And the conference is deeper now than it was back then.
And, I mean, saying all that, I don't see a team in the play-in tournament that's going to push either of those two teams to even a single win here in this first round. But, look, you got to get it back on track starting Thursday against Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers. It kicks off a big stretch, as we mentioned. Lakers on Thursday, final regular season game against the Pacers on Saturday, back-to-back against the Oklahoma City Thunder on Sunday, and then you're off to the West Coast for that 5-game West Coast road trip starting, next Tuesday in San Francisco against the Golden State Warriors. So we'll see how things go on Thursday. We hope for better things. 6:30 tip on Thursday, 6 o'clock is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk with you then.
You're right, and I'll agree. It does sound too good to be true, but offering you affordable